When I was a child, our suburban home was a haven of predictability and comfort. My family was typical. Two loving parents, a little brother who was always into mischief, and a cat named Whiskers. Our backyard was my sanctuary, a place where I could escape into my imagination, playing games or reading books under the shade of the old oak tree. One afternoon, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed our backyard, I saw something that defied explanation. Standing near the back fence was a German Shepherd. It was an imposing, regal creature, with a coat that glistened in the light and eyes that seemed to pierce through the air. We never owned a German Shepherd, nor had I ever seen one around our neighborhood. Frozen in place, I watched as the dog stood motionless, staring directly at me. There was something oddly captivating about its presence, as if it were more than just a dog. For what felt like an eternity, we locked eyes. My heart raced and a shiver ran down my spine, but I couldn't look away. The intensity of its gaze was both mesmerizing and terrifying. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the German Shepherd turned away. In the blink of an eye, it vanished. No fading into the distance, no retreat through a gap in the fence. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. I blinked, wondering if my eyes had played a trick on me. But the image of the dog was seared into my memory, too vivid to dismiss as mere imagination. I ran inside, calling for my parents, eager to tell them about the strange dog in our yard. But when we returned, there was no sign of it. My parents assured me it was probably just a neighbor's dog that had slipped away, but I knew what I saw. That German Shepherd wasn't just any dog. It was something more, something otherworldly. The mystery of the phantom dog became my secret, a chilling memory that would stay with me long after that day. After that first encounter with the phantom German Shepherd, I couldn't shake the feeling that it would return. Days turned into weeks, and just as I was beginning to convince myself that it had all been a bizarre daydream, the dog reappeared. I was playing in the backyard, kicking a soccer ball around, when I felt it, the intense sensation of being watched. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and there it was, standing in the same spot near the back fence. The German Shepherd looked exactly as it had before. Its eyes locked onto mine with an unnerving focus. This time, the stare felt even more chilling. I could see every detail of the dog, the way its fur rippled in the breeze, the gleam of its teeth as it slightly bared them, the deep, knowing look in its eyes. I was rooted to the spot, my body refusing to move despite the growing fear gnawing at my insides. After what felt like an eternity, the dog turned and disappeared in the same inexplicable manner, as if it had never been there at all. These sightings became a regular occurrence. Sometimes the dog would appear at dusk, other times in the middle of a sunny afternoon. Each encounter left me more unsettled than the last. The dog never made a sound, never moved toward me. It just stood there, staring, before vanishing without a trace. I tried telling my family, desperate for someone to believe me. At dinner one evening, I recounted the latest sighting, describing the dog in vivid detail. My parents exchanged amused glances, clearly unconvinced. "It's just your imagination," my mom said, ruffling my hair. "You've been reading too many ghost stories." Even my little brother, who usually loved hearing about spooky things, dismissed my account. "Maybe it's a magic dog," he joked, laughing, but their skepticism only deepened my fear. If no one else could see it, what did that mean? Was I going crazy? Or was there something sinister happening that only I could perceive? I started avoiding the backyard, spending more time indoors where I felt safer. But even within the confines of our house, the memory of those eyes watching me lingered. Each time I ventured outside, I braced myself for another encounter, dreading the moment when I would once again lock eyes with the phantom German Shepherd. The repeated sightings of the phantom German Shepherd consumed my thoughts. The fear was undeniable, but so was my curiosity. Determined to understand what I was experiencing, I started researching ghostly animals, hoping to find answers that would either debunk my fears or explain them. I spent hours at the local library, poring over books about paranormal phenomena. I learned about ghost dogs, spectral animals that supposedly appear to warn of danger or to protect sacred places. The descriptions matched what I was seeing. The eerie silence, the intense stare, the ability to vanish. But why was this happening in my backyard? My research led me to old neighborhood stories and historical records. I asked around, subtly bringing up the topic in conversations with neighbors and local shopkeepers. To my surprise, I stumbled upon tales of a German shepherd that had once belonged to a family who lived in our house decades ago. The dog had been fiercely loyal, protecting the family until it tragically died while saving a child from an accident. People said its spirit never left, continuing to watch over the property. These stories both comforted and unsettled me. If the dog was a guardian, why did its presence feel so menacing? I delved deeper, examining old newspaper clippings and speaking with the oldest residents in the area. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, recalled hearing about the ghost dog when she was a child. She told me that it was known to appear at dusk and dawn, times when the veil between the living and the spirit world was said to be thinnest. I started to notice patterns in the sightings. The dog always appeared in the same spot near the back fence, and it seemed to show up most frequently in the early morning or late evening. There were also certain dates when the sightings were more intense, often aligning with significant anniversaries, like the date of the dog's heroic death. Armed with this new information, I tried to make sense of it all. Was the dog trying to communicate something to me? Was there a reason it had chosen me as the witness to its spectral vigil? The more I learned, the more questions I had, and the more determined I became to uncover the truth. I couldn't share this with my family. They already thought I was imagining things. But I knew what I saw, and the phantom German shepherd was real. My investigation became a personal mission, driven by equal parts fear and fascination. The ghost dog had become a part of my life, and I needed to understand its purpose before I could find any peace. As the days turned into weeks, the phantom German shepherd's appearances grew more frequent and intense. It no longer confined itself to the back fence. Sometimes I would catch glimpses of it closer to the house, its spectral form flickering in the shadows. Each encounter left me more unnerved, the sense of menace growing with every sighting. The final straw came one night when I was in my room, trying to focus on my homework. I heard the familiar, soft thud of paws on the grass outside my window. My heart raced as I turned to look, and there it was, standing right by the window, its eyes glowing eerily in the dim light. This time, there was something different, something more urgent, more intense in its gaze. I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront whatever this was. Summoning every ounce of courage, I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. The cool night air was thick with tension as I approached the spot where the dog stood. The German shepherd didn't move, its eyes tracking my every step. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The dog remained silent, its gaze unwavering. I felt a shiver run down my spine as it took a step toward me, the air growing colder around us. For a moment, I considered running back into the house, but something inside me knew I needed to see this through. As I stood my ground, the dog began to circle me slowly, its eyes never leaving mine. The tension was unbearable, my breath coming in shallow gasps. Then, without warning, it stopped in front of me, lifting its head to the sky and letting out a low, mournful howl. The sound was otherworldly, reverberating through the night air and sending chills down my spine. Suddenly, the dog lunged toward me. I braced myself, expecting to feel the cold, spectral touch. But just as quickly, it stopped inches from my face, its eyes burning into mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Then, in an instant, it was gone, vanishing into thin air as if it had never been there. I stood there, heart pounding, the echo of its howl still ringing in my ears. The air around me felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. I didn't know what to make of the encounter, but I knew one thing. Something had changed. The phantom German shepherd had made its final stand, and for reasons I couldn't fully comprehend, it felt like it had imparted a message, a warning, perhaps, or a final farewell. I stumbled back into the house, shaken but resolute. The memory of that night would haunt me, but it also marked the end of the relentless sightings. The phantom dog had made its point, and now it was up to me to live with the knowledge of its existence and the mystery of its presence. The days following my confrontation with the phantom German shepherd were filled with a strange calm. The constant sightings and unsettling encounters ceased, leaving me with an odd mix of relief and confusion. However, the experience had left a lasting impact on me. The ghostly presence of the dog, its intense gaze, and the chilling howl haunted my dreams, seeping into my waking thoughts. Despite the calm, there were still occasional odd occurrences around the house. Objects would sometimes be found out of place, and there were times when I felt a sudden chill, as if a cold breeze had passed through me. The backyard, where I had first seen the dog, now felt different, quieter, but with an undercurrent of something unseen. The questions that had driven my investigation remained unanswered. Why had the dog chosen to appear to me? What was it trying to communicate with its haunting presence? Despite all my research and the final confrontation, the true nature and reason for the dog's appearances remained shrouded in mystery. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I had missed, some vital piece of information that would make everything clear. I often found myself standing at the window, looking out at the spot where the dog had vanished. The memory of its eyes, so full of an unspoken message, lingered in my mind. Even though the sightings had stopped, I couldn't fully convince myself that the phantom dog was gone. The house felt different now, as if it had absorbed some of the dog's energy, forever marking it as a place of mystery and spectral presence. The experience had changed me. I was more cautious, more aware of the things that lurked at the edge of perception. The world seemed a bit darker, a bit more mysterious. The phantom German Shepherd had left a lasting impression on my life, a reminder that there are things in this world that defy explanation, lurking just out of sight. Even now, as I look back on those days, I can't help but feel a lingering unease. The phantom dog's presence, though no longer visible, still feels palpable. It's as if, in some way, it is still watching, waiting for the right moment to reappear. The mystery remains, a haunting question mark in the story of my life, a reminder that some things are meant to remain unsolved. It was a quiet night, the kind where everything felt just right. My wife and I had settled into bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting a warm, comforting light over the room. The gentle hum of the ceiling fan and the distant sounds of the neighborhood slowly winding down for the night created a peaceful ambience. We exchanged a few words, sharing a moment of closeness before drifting off to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, both of us jolted awake. We had heard it clearly, our daughter's voice calling out to us. The sound was so real, so urgent, that it sent a shiver down my spine. We exchanged confused looks, the remnants of sleep quickly fading as our instincts kicked in. The room was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the curtains, but there was no one there. Confusion washed over me. Our daughter's voice had been so distinct, yet the room was empty. I could see the same bewilderment mirrored in my wife's eyes. We didn't speak. We both knew what we had to do. Throwing back the covers, I got out of bed and headed towards our daughter's room, my wife close behind me. I quietly opened the door to our daughter's room, half expecting to find her awake and confused about why we were there. Instead, what greeted me was a scene of undisturbed serenity. She lay there, cocooned in her blankets, her chest rising and falling rhythmically with each peaceful breath. Relief washed over me, yet a lingering unease remained. How could her voice have seemed so real if she was fast asleep? I glanced back at my wife, who stood silently beside me, her expression mirroring my own disbelief. We exchanged a few hushed words, trying to rationalize what had just happened. Maybe it was a shared dream, we suggested to each other, grasping for any logical explanation. But deep down, we knew it felt too real, too unsettling to dismiss so easily. Reluctantly, we left our daughter's room and returned to our own bed. Tossing and turning, we tried to reassure ourselves that it was all just a trick of the mind, a bizarre occurrence that couldn't possibly have a rational explanation. Yet, despite our efforts, the eerie feeling lingered in the air, refusing to be ignored. As we lay back down, attempting to settle our nerves and coax ourselves back to sleep, an unsettling unease hung in the air like a heavy fog. The memory of our daughter's voice echoed in my mind, refusing to fade into the background of the night. I could sense my wife's restlessness beside me, her movements betraying the unease we both felt. Then, in the dimness of our bedroom, it happened. My wife's sharp intake of breath shattered the silence, followed by a whispered, urgent plea. I turned to her, my heart racing, and followed her gaze to the corner of the room. There, amidst the shadows cast by the faint moonlight, stood a figure. It was dark and formless, yet distinct enough to send a chill down my spine. I felt a wave of intense fear wash over me, freezing me in place. It felt like the air itself had turned cold, thick with an oppressive weight that seemed to suffocate the room. My wife and I stared, transfixed by the presence in our midst. Time seemed to stand still as we grappled with the impossible sight before us. Every rational thought struggled against the primal instinct to flee, to escape the palpable terror that emanated from the dark silhouette. In that moment, fear held us captive, rendering us powerless in the face of the unknown. With trembling hands and a pounding heart, I summoned all the courage I could muster. The figure in the corner seemed to pulse with an ominous energy as I cautiously approached. Each step felt heavier than the last, the air thick with an unnameable dread that seemed to cling to my skin. I reached out tentatively, my fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold, empty space where the shadowy form had stood just moments before. But as soon as I drew near, it dissolved like smoke, vanishing into the darkness without a trace. My breath caught in my throat, the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I recoiled from the now empty corner. The room felt charged with an unsettling tension, as if the very atmosphere had been tainted by the presence of something otherworldly. Fear gripped me like a vice, its icy fingers tightening around my heart. I glanced at my wife, her wide eyes reflecting the same terror that had taken hold of me. We exchanged a wordless glance, silently acknowledging the inexplicable and terrifying encounter we had just witnessed. Despite the figure's disappearance, its lingering presence hung heavy in the air, a haunting reminder that some mysteries defy explanation and some fears refuse to be easily dismissed. I never believed in the supernatural until it invaded our peaceful suburban home. Nestled on the outskirts of town, our house was a sanctuary of tranquility, untouched by the eerie whispers that haunted dark corners. Life here was serene, marked by the comforting routine of family dinners and lazy Sunday afternoons in the garden. I'm a practical person, grounded in the here and now. My days were filled with work deadlines and soccer practices, far removed from the realm of ghost stories and paranormal encounters. Yet, everything changed when my niece, a devout Christian, returned from church one fateful Sunday. She was visibly shaken, her normally bright eyes clouded with fear. "Uncle," she began hesitantly, "I saw something, a demon. It was standing at the foot of your bed." Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I brushed it off as a figment of an overactive imagination. Little did I know, this unsettling revelation was just the beginning. I couldn't shake the unease that settled over our home after my niece's unsettling revelation. Sarah, my niece, had always been devout, a pillar of faith in our family. Her words carried weight, even as I struggled to reconcile them with my rational beliefs. That Sunday evening, as we gathered for dinner, Sarah hesitated before finally sharing her ordeal. Her voice trembled slightly as she recounted her experience at church. "Uncle," she began, her eyes darting nervously around the table. "During the service, I saw something I can't explain. A dark presence, a demon, standing right at the foot of your bed." Silence enveloped the room as her words hung in the air, heavy with fear. Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched her napkin, her usually calm demeanor shattered by the vividness of her vision. I exchanged a glance with my spouse, both of us struggling to grasp the implications of her words. For Sarah, a staunch believer in the protective power of prayer and faith, this encounter rocked the very foundation of her beliefs. The demon's malevolent presence had cast a shadow over her unwavering faith, leaving her questioning the safety of our home and the boundaries between the spiritual and the tangible. As she excused herself from the table, her footsteps echoing down the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted irrevocably within our once peaceful home. The weeks following Sarah's revelation were fraught with a sense of impending dread. Our once serene home now crackled with an unsettling energy, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. It began innocuously enough with the refrigerator, a modern marvel that had always hummed contentedly in the corner of our kitchen. One morning, I groggily shuffled into the kitchen, expecting the usual cool rush of air as I opened the fridge. Instead, I was met with a stagnant warmth. Confused, I checked the settings, tapped the control panel, but nothing brought the hum of life back to the appliance. It had simply stopped working, inexplicably. A few days later, while relaxing in the living room, the television abruptly flickered to life. Static crackled on the screen, casting eerie shadows across the room. I frowned, certain I had turned it off before settling down. As I reached for the remote to silence the unsettling display, the television cycled through channels on its own, as if possessed by some unseen force. The incidents escalated. One morning, as I prepared for work, the hairdryer in the bathroom emitted a faint sputter before falling silent. I checked the outlet, switched plugs, but no amount of troubleshooting could revive it. The hair straightener, used minutes later, suffered a similar fate, its heating coils refusing to warm, leaving my morning routine in disarray. Each malfunction seemed isolated, but together they formed a disturbing pattern, punctuated by Sarah's haunting vision. Our home, once a haven of tranquility, now harbored a malevolent presence that toyed with our appliances, leaving us unnerved and grasping for rational explanations that eluded us. The eerie events that had begun with Sarah's chilling vision and the inexplicable appliance malfunctions soon escalated into a nightly ordeal of unsettling phenomena. Night after night, the once familiar sounds of our home took on a sinister undertone. Soft footsteps echoed down deserted hallways, accompanied by faint whispers that vanished as soon as I strained to listen. Doors creaked open on their own accord, their movement punctuated by a chilling breeze that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Shadows danced in the corners of rooms, fleeting glimpses of movement that defied logical explanation. I caught fleeting silhouettes out of the corner of my eye, only for them to dissipate into thin air when I turned to confront them. The atmosphere thickened with a palpable sense of unease, as if an unseen presence watched our every move from the shadows. Tension mounted within our family. Conversations grew strained, peppered with nervous glances and hesitant words. Sleep became elusive, each night punctuated by the disconcerting symphony of unexplained noises and flickering shadows. Sarah, once resilient in her faith, now struggled to reconcile her beliefs with the malevolent forces that seemed to lurk within our home. As the paranormal occurrences intensified, so did our fear. What had begun as isolated incidents now wove a tapestry of dread that enveloped us, leaving us teetering on the edge of a reality where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural blurred into a chilling uncertainty. As the nights wore on, haunted by inexplicable phenomena and growing unease, my family faced a daunting choice: confront the malevolent presence lurking within our home or continue to live in fear of the unknown. Sarah, once steadfast in her faith, suggested seeking guidance from a local paranormal expert. "Maybe they can make sense of what's happening," she suggested hesitantly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. My spouse, more pragmatic, suggested consulting a priest or religious figure, hoping for divine intervention to banish whatever dark force had invaded our lives. Reluctantly, we agreed to explore both options, desperate for answers that eluded us. Yet, as we made arrangements to contact professionals, a chilling realization settled over us. This malevolent presence, whatever it was, had woven itself into the fabric of our home. Its grip was tightening, leaving us with a sense of foreboding that defied rational explanation. The resolution remained elusive, leaving us at the mercy of forces beyond our comprehension. As I pen these words, I cannot help but wonder if our ordeal has truly ended, or if the darkness that once lurked at the foot of my bed continues to linger, waiting for its next opportunity to strike.